All right, we'll get started. Welcome. Thanks for attending this hangout. My name is Paul Ramsay. I'm a professional hypnotist, and I've been practicing since 2004. Now, I don't usually have this awesome Barry White voice, but I'm battling a bit of a cold. So you get to hear the deep, sexy version of me tonight. So we're going to be talking tonight about the business of stage hypnotism and what it takes to get yourself into this business. If you're watching this, then presumably you have an interest in stage hypnotism. And so what we're doing, if somehow you've stumbled across this, I don't know how you would have, but if you've stumbled across this, we're actually going to be talking tonight or today, if you're catching this on the replay, about we have 4 sessions. This is a 4-webinar series, and the first one is about the business of stage hypnotism. Then we're going to talk about the science of stage hypnotism, and we're going to talk about the art of stage hypnotism, and finally we're going to talk about the heart of stage hypnotism. So each webinar, we're going to start with a 30-minute focus, a particular theme, and then we're going to open it up to question and answer. And hopefully you would have questions about the theme, but when we go to Q&A, you can ask about whatever you want. It doesn't matter at all. And if you have questions, you can either leave them in the comment area on the host page that is hosting this video, or you can tweet me at Ramsay Media LLC, RAMSAY MEDIA LLC. So I've got the Twitter feed up. I'm checking it now. Yes. Oh, the X-Files comes back tonight. Well, I want to hang out with you guys. I do love the X-Files, but I want to talk about my job, and I'm happy to spend this time with you. So I'll give you a little story, little bio about myself, so you understand what my background is and what I would like to think qualifies me to host a 4-webinar series about stage hypnotism. I got into stage hypnotism in 2004. I was working at the University of New Hampshire at the time. I was actually running a residence hall, and before that I had been an English teacher. And while I was running the residence hall at UNH, I used to hire this retired hypnotist to come in once a year and give a demo to my residents in my building. He would come in, he would demo for about an hour and a half. And every year he'd come in, I'd always find it curious, I'd find it interesting, we'd chat a little bit, and then that was it. I wouldn't see him for the rest of the year. So the 3rd year that I brought him in, he had come in, he had demoed, then all the students left, and I was just hanging out talking with him. And he told me some interesting story about a client that he had. He actually never did stage hypnotism as a profession. He only gave demonstrations that were sort of like stage hypnotism as a way to bring people's curiosity up so that maybe they would come see him for client sessions. So he had lots of stories about the clients he had worked with. And so he's telling me this story about a client that he had worked with, and a really cool story. And I said, man, that's cool. I would love to learn how to do that. And without missing a beat, he was so kind. He said, I'll teach you. I think you'd be great at it. And so I started meeting with him, and he taught me, a solid foundation in hypnotism. And the more I did it, the more I really got into it. And I realized that I had a great opportunity. I had been an English teacher because I wanted to help people. I wanted to make a difference somehow in people's lives. And I also had always sort of, ever since I was a kid, really, not sort of, I did, I wished I could be an entertainer. And I had this sort of light bulb moment where the light kicked on, and I thought, you know what, you can do both. If you do hypnotism, you can be on stage and you can have fun and you can entertain people. And you can also see people on a one-on-one basis or even a group basis sometimes. And you can use hypnosis to make their life better and to help them enjoy a better quality of life. And so when I started doing this training with Bob Chase, who was the man who had initially taught me hypnotism, I got to see the potential of that as I started working with my residents in my building, and exploring how hypnosis worked. And I realized that I had a really special opportunity. So then I went and I trained for a certificate. I went and trained with the National Guild of Hypnotists, and I did their training program, and I got certified as a consulting hypnotist. That, in their eyes, qualified me to start doing client work. I had a solid foundation of hypnotism, and so I started meeting with clients, and I kept it simple at first. I did things like just stress management, smoking cessation, weight loss, nail biting, stuff like that. Kind of the basic run-of-the-mill stuff. Now, some of it can be really challenging still, but those are sort of like the most common things that you'd use hypnotism for. And as soon as I started doing that, I also started laying the groundwork for a stage career. Immediately, I started going for high school. I started working with high schools, after prom events, after grad parties, fundraiser shows, stuff like that. And that was where I got my first work. In the summer of 2004, I did some grad nights, and then I moved right into orientation sessions for colleges. I started doing orientation sessions for colleges, and that sort of got me through the summer. Then that fall, when colleges opened up again, I started performing for colleges. It's really popular for colleges when they open in the fall. So I did that, and then that's where I started seeing that there was a lot of potential for me, at least there. There's so many colleges, they need entertainment all year long. So I started to really focus on that. In fact, I focused more on that than the client work or any of the other ways that I could have made money with hypnotism. And that stuck with me. So I can talk more about, and I'll come back to that, because there's something important there. But that's sort of like the brief beginning story of how I got into hypnotism. That was 2004. Now 2016, I hypnotize about 1,500 people a year. I perform for about 15,000 people a year, mostly colleges, some corporate stuff, some high school stuff, and then once in a while, maybe a fair or a campground or some kind of other category. But the lion's share of my performing is done for colleges, and then high schools, and then corporate stuff. I don't have a list for sure. I wish I did for you guys. I mean, I've performed, I do about anywhere from 60 to 85 shows a year. I travel quite a bit. I see clients when I'm not traveling, so I do still do client work, and I'm a certified instructor. That's part of the purpose of this web series, is to help maybe find some people who would want to train with me. We'll talk about that later. We're not going to talk about that now. But I spend a lot of time on the road, and I spend a lot of time traveling, and I love it. I enjoy it very much. I make a good living. We'll talk more about that soon. We're going to get into the economics of stage hypnotism. In fact, you know what? Let's not wait. Let's just do that now. Excuse me. I'm going to put in a cough drop and tuck it so I can maybe not cough quite so much. So probably a good place to start, if you're thinking about getting into stage hypnotism, is to really think about the economics that are involved. What tends to happen when people get started, not even when they get started, when people first think that they might want to get into stage hypnotism, they tend, and this is totally natural, they tend to focus on the hypnosis. How do you learn to hypnotize people? How am I going to get trained? Where do I find a trainer? What organization do I join? There are like over a dozen different professional organizations for hypnotists in the world. How do you choose the right organization? How do you find the right trainer? All that kind of stuff. What books do I read? What videos do I watch? It all centers in the hypnotism for most people, because that's the thing you want to acquire, right? You want to learn that skill set. You want to learn how to do it. And I totally get that. But at the same time that you start all that, you really need to start your business plan as well. If you're going to get into hypnotism, you got to have a plan. So one way to do that is to start by considering the economics of stage hypnotism. So first of all, how do you make money? If you're just going to be in stage hypnotism, no other kinds of hypnotism, just stage hypnotism, once you're fully trained and you know what you're doing, you should be able to go out. All right, this is a very reasonable expectation. You should be able to go out and make no less than $500 per show. And that is like bottom of the barrel. You really, very early on in your career, should not take less than, I would say, $750 a show. And very soon after starting, you should get that up to $1,000 per show. If you've been properly trained, if you have a good concept, and you're implementing it well, stage hypnotism is sort of a rare form of entertainment, right? I can go to the movies 7 days a week, and I can see a movie for $10. I can go to my local bar on music night, and I can see a musical group performing, for a cover charge of what, $10, sometimes $5. I can go to a local venue and see a more established musical act. These things are available a lot. Comedy, right? They're all great. I'm not downing any of them, but I just think it's not every day. You don't have that ability every day to go out and see a stage hypnosis show. So part of your model that you want to employ is understanding that you're getting into something that's a little more rare, a little more special, and that because of that, the price point is higher. Now, as you get more and more experience and you develop your client base, right, and you choose different markets, we're going to talk about markets next, you can get up as high as, I would say, it is reasonable to think that you might get up as high as $4,000 a show. It's going to take years for most of people to do that. All right, it's not every day. Even now, for myself, I've been doing this for over a decade now. In the college market, I don't get $4,000 a show. There are more hypnotists in the marketplace than ever before, right? And basic economics says that as supply goes up, prices go down. And so what has happened is the pricing of stage hypnotism has fallen a little bit over the past few years. It's still very lucrative. I routinely get $1,500 to $2,500 a show, and I work a lot. So I have brought in over 6 figures in revenue each of the past 4 or 5 years. I've consistently been in the 6-figure range, right? And again, and that's not, I don't work every day. I only work between like 60 and 85 gigs a year. So, I mean, there's money there. There's plenty of money there. I'll lay that out more when we talk about markets, but you do want to think about, so your performance fees alone, you can make, once you get established and you build a client list, you can make 6 figures just on your performance fees. Then if you want, you can add things like back of the room sales. So what you do is you have product, you have hypnosis audio programs, and either, we used to do CDs. Now what people are doing is downloads, but you can sell the downloads. You have a system where you can set up a table at the back of the room in a theater or, depends on what kind of venue you're in, but you can set up a table. And at the end of the show, instead of just hanging out on the stage, you go to your table. It's all set up and ready to go. People who are impressed by what you did, they come up and they see you, and you work that. You've got a smoking program, a weight loss program, a nail biting program, a golf improvement program, better sleep, stress management, whatever. And you sell these programs, and that can add to your take on any given night. Now, in some venues, they're going to want, as the host, they're going to want a percentage of your back of the room sales. That's something you negotiate. You can say no. Sometimes they're going to say, well, then you're not selling anything, particularly with colleges. That's changed a lot in the last like 3 years. Many colleges now, if you're going to sell product after the show, they're going to want 10%. But again, and you may not even want to do it, but it is there as a revenue source. That's why I'm bringing it up. A lot of people, when they're getting into it early on, don't think about it. Where you have these people you've put on a show and they're impressed. Now their minds are open to what hypnosis can do. So it's a good time to convert on that and get them to have a program that helps them when they're more open-minded, when they're open to the possibilities, actually get them a good result, and you increase your bottom line. Now, likewise, the other thing you can do is you can sell client sessions. If you want to do client sessions in person, if you're working regionally, locally, or over like Skype, Google Hangouts, Zoom, these different video conferencing platforms, you can do hypnosis sessions, coaching sessions over those. And yes, hypnosis absolutely works over video. Absolutely. You can do hypnosis over the phone. I prefer video so I can see what I'm doing. You don't have to be in person. You can do it over video. So that's another way for you to add revenue is, again, it's the same thing. They're impressed. Their minds are open. They're thinking about the potential for hypnosis to help them. And then, they'll come up and they'll want to talk to you, have your business card, have a fact sheet, a pamphlet, something that you can give them that, will get them to set up. And when I train my students, we talk about the specifics of that. That takes a while to talk about, but I want you to know, just think about it. That's another way to add to your bottom line. So if you're putting these things all together, you can make a really good living. Because I already told you, when you get doing well, you can make six figures as it is in that area in stage hypnotism. So those are other ways to add that stuff. So furthermore, on the economics, the other side, right? It's not all making money. There are costs. There are expenses. You're going to need to pay for things like, first of all, your training, if you're not trained yet. You're going to need to pay for liability insurance. You're going to need to pay travel expenses. You're going to need to pay, your rental car, your airfare, your hotel, your meals. All that stuff's coming out of your performance fee, right? So there are costs and there are expenses. You may decide to do additional training. You might, if you're developing those products, you might have brochure costs. If you're trying to increase the production value of your show, you might decide. I always set up, what I do is when I go to a venue, the venue has to provide everything. They've got to provide the sound system. They've got to provide the lighting. They've got to provide everything. I want to come in, take my laptop and plug it in and be able to work. I have colleagues who like to travel with their own stuff. You might want to have your own sound system. You might want to have your own lighting. If you do that, you got to transport, right? So you're going to end up literally having like a box truck. You have to get a truck and have the sound equipment and lighting equipment, all that stuff. It's all like, how much do you want to get into it? If you're going to have all that stuff set up, are you going to do it by yourself? Are you going to have a crew that helps you? Are you going to have someone that runs your equipment for you during the show? Are you going to run it all yourself? I've seen hypnotists who have DJs. They have their own DJ that runs all their music during the show. They have an assistant, who hands them props and does things. There's a lot of room to move in how you want to set up the implementation of your show. But as you do, some of those things are going to cost you money. So that's part of the economics of your show and of your career. So as you're thinking about those things, that's stuff to start thinking about is, how far down that rabbit hole do you want to go? What do you want your show to look like? What do you want it to feel like? How do you make that come true? How do you make it happen? How do you implement it? So there is expenses. You've got your revenue, you've got your expenses. But last final example. And again, I don't want you to think I'm promising this to you. I am absolutely not. But I can tell you, I have done what I'm about to share with you. I've done every year for years now. If you get into the college market, in the college market, the most popular time for hypnosis is the last 2 weeks of August and the first week of September, because that's when everyone's coming back to school, right? They use hypnotists all year long.
but those are the most popular times of year. So typically for years now, in that 3-week period, I'll perform for 18 out of 21 days. Every day I pretty much just get up, get on an airplane and go someplace. And this year, I actually counted it up. I never really counted it up before, but I knew I was getting ready to do some of this stuff, and I wanted to be able to say some of my real numbers. I don't have a problem talking about what really happens in my life. The whole point of this is to be honest with you. In that 3-week period this year, I made $26,500 and change. Like it was like 26,561 or something like that. And what was really cool about that for me was when I counted up and I thought, oh my gosh, when I was a teacher, I made $26,000 a year. And I had gone to school, I had gotten a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. I'd worked very hard to have that career. And I was making $26,000 a year. As a hypnotist, I made $26,500 in 3 weeks. Now, can you do that as soon as you're certified? No, absolutely not. It's going to take time to build up your presence, to build your brand and get that level of business. But you can do it. My agency that represents me has 2 other hypnotists on their roster, and they're that busy at that time of year as well. It's a very busy time of year. So when you get your game on and you get your stuff together, if you work in the college market and you can hold your own, you can make in 3 weeks what some people in America take all year to make. So just an idea of what the upper potential is. Now, that example talking about college, that's about markets, right? There's various markets, and I did a video series that breaks this down more. So I'm not going to go through it all over again. Please go to BestHypnosisTraining.com and, excuse me, on the blog section, I have 4 different videos that break down the different markets that you can work in. High school markets, college markets, corporate markets, and then I did sort of like a miscellaneous one that talked about casinos, cruise ships, nightclubs, and fairs, okay? And in those videos, I talk about what are the pros and cons of working in those different markets, and what are some of the things you need to know. As a quick overview, here's what I want you to understand. Each market, while they're all pretty much similar, each market is somehow different. They have a different type of buyer. They have a different type of market. The money is different from market to market. The way the buyers make their decision is going to be a little bit different. More importantly, the way you find those buyers is different, quite different from market to market. So when you're getting into stage hypnotism, again, early on, spend some time thinking about what market do you want to be in, and how can you start even before you've finished your certification, planning for how to insert yourself into that market. Because there's email lists and promo, whether it's a video or pamphlets or whatever, all your marketing materials, they need to be sort of catered to that market, right? So that it feels right for the buyer when they see it, they hold it, they watch it, whatever it is. So that plan starts early. You don't want to wait until, okay, now I need work. I really need work now to start implementing that. You want to be ahead of the game with it. So the people that train with me, we cover that stuff. We talk about how to get ready to take on your market that you want. But the biggest thing for you, when you think about would you like to be in a certain market, I think is to think about what accompanying lifestyle things come with that market. Like for me, I mostly work in the college market. So I fly a lot. What if you absolutely hate flying and you just don't want to do it? Probably not good. Not a good market for you. Maybe you need to develop a regional market and just stay within driving distance. It's going to take away a lot of your potential work, but you can do it. Maybe if you're going to be regional anyway, you just do the high school market. You're like, yeah, Paul, I hate high school kids. They drive me nuts. Okay, then don't work with high school kids. There are those kind of things. What kind of people do you like to work with? Are you willing to travel or not? And does that fit the market? Do you feel comfortable selling to that market? Are the people that you'll have to talk with like people that you're going to be able to talk with and sell to? Or do you need to find an agent who specializes in that market? Because what if you have absolutely no connections and you don't know how to create them? Maybe you need to get an agent who specializes in that market. My agent specializes in the college market. There are other agents who specialize in the corporate market. There are other agents who specialize in the, I can't think of what I want to say right now, but like opera houses, nightclubs, like the nightlife entertainment, market, real bigger venues. So maybe you need to find one of those people. And then it comes down to, okay, so how do you get an agent? What does it take to get an agent? So that's another thing for you to consider. So I'm just going to click on something here so I'm keeping up with things, checking my Twitter feed. The last thing I want to talk to, and then we're going to open it up to questions, is strategy. Okay, we've talked about a quick overview of economics, how the money plays out in this industry. We've talked about markets. What kind of lifestyle do you have? What kind of buyers do you have to get in touch with? What do you want? How do you build a brand within your market, really? And that's a whole other, that takes time to learn about that branding, but you can do it. So the last thing we're going to talk about is strategy. And in the business of hypnotism, you must have a strategy. Well, you know what? I'm going to take that back briefly. I suppose technically you don't have to. But if you don't have a strategy, like you could just do it all by trial and error. You could just do it all by trial and error. It's going to take you way longer to get yourself going and to get yourself really going well. If you want to get into stage hypnotism and you want to be successful as quickly as possible, making money, profiting in stage hypnotism, you need to have a strategy for how to make that happen. You need to have a business plan that includes marketing, brand building. You need to know what market you're going after. What does it take to get into that market? And you've got to have a detailed plan for how do you build all the support resources for that. YouTube channel, website, social platforms, old traditional, direct mail. I don't know. There's not one way that's perfect for everyone, but you've got to figure out what you feel comfortable doing so that you can reach out to people and so that you can start to get that work. And you also have to have a plan for how you're going to make yourself stand out from all the other hypnotists that are already out there. Like I said earlier, there are more hypnotists than ever before. There are more stage hypnotists than there have ever been. And they're all going for the same work. There's a finite amount of work. Now there's a lot of work out there, but it's limited. So how do you get yourself to stand apart? That takes strategy. That's not something you want to just do trial and error. What if I try this? What if I try that? Sit, think about it, implement it, tweak it, tune it, rework it, reshape it. That's what you really want. And I'll tell you my own story with regard to that. I'll give you the quick version of it to give you a concrete example of why it matters. I told you earlier to start this whole thing off that I got started in 2004. I didn't have a strong enough plan. I didn't have a strong enough plan. And so for the first probably 3-4 years, I was really slow. I was really slow coming along. I'm trying to think about the numbers because, again, they're funny to me now. They weren't funny at the time. My first year as a hypnotist was really 8 months. It wasn't a full year. Yeah. My first year as a hypnotist was really 8 months. And when I turned in my tax return at the end of the year, I made $95. $95. That was how much, that was my revenue. That wasn't my profit. It wasn't my revenue. That was my profit. After I paid all my expenses and everything, I made $95. So I thought, well, at least I didn't lose money. And then the next year, I bumped it up to $12,000. It was $12,000 my second year. I think I did about $20,000 my third year. It was pretty slow. And it's because I didn't have a plan for how to get into a particular market. And the other mistake I made was I did this like shotgun strategy where I thought I would piece together multiple revenue streams at once. I was doing client sessions, I was doing shows, and I was developing an online store where I was selling CDs. While the idea of having multiple revenue streams was reasonable at the time, in hindsight today, what I realize is what it did was, it was like I divided and conquered myself. It split my energy between those three different areas. And so it was totally like a jack of all trades, master of none situation. So I would really recommend to any of you who are thinking about getting into hypnosis, stage hypnosis now, then just get into stage hypnosis to start. Pick a market, launch into that market, establish yourself in that market, have a strategy for doing that and nothing else until you feel like you've done a good job of getting into that market. And once you've done it and you've established yourself, then decide, do you want to add another market? Or do you want to do you want to just say, all right, I'm going to go, not only am I going to not add another market, I'm going to go in a whole bigger direction. Like I want to start doing client sessions. But don't do that until you feel like the core thing you started with is strong. And that's this, that's the kind of strategy that is really going to help you be successful. It's what some people call the 80-20 rule, Pareto's principle. You spend 80%. What happens with a lot of people is you spend 80% of your energy on the thing that makes you only 20% of your profit. And this kind of interesting irony there is, so that means really a lot of times then you're spending 20% of your energy on the thing that makes you 80% of your profit. If you'd stop trying to spend energy on things that weren't really profitable and focus on what is, your profit would explode. So that's one of the things that I encourage my students is have a strategy early on for how you want to get into stage hypnotism. Where exactly do you want to do that? What kind of lifestyle do you want to have? What kind of people do you want to work with? And how do you get in touch with those people in those markets and get to those places? What does it take to make that happen? And a big part of that, again, sort of circling back, is how do you get yourself to stand out from your competitors? Because in those early years, what I was doing is I was just trying to market myself. I wasn't marketing my show. I was marketing myself. You should bring me. I'm a good guy. I'm trustworthy. I like students. I had a lot of these talking points, right? I love students. I used to work at a college. I used to be a high school teacher. Yeah, that kind of stuff. And while people care about that stuff to some extent, what they really care about is what's special about your show, because your show is what really entertains people, right? You have to have a concept for your show. And so you want to be able to tell people what is it about your show that's going to make them remember it? What is it about your show that's going to make the people that they're booking you for, they usually represent another group of people. How do they know that by booking you, they're really going to make their people happy, that their people are going to enjoy themselves? So that's what you're looking for. A strategy for how to set yourself up to launch into stage hypnotism and cover all those things. So, what do we got for questions? Anything? No? You're all just nodding. You learned everything you needed to. Okay. if you're going to, yeah, those questions would be better tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, we're going to talk more about the hypnosis itself tomorrow night. Okay, so tomorrow night, the science of stage hypnotism, and that's your chance to ask about how hypnosis actually functions on stage, and whatever you've been wondering about that. If you think of things afterward that you would like to ask, we do have a comments area on the website, BestHypnosisTraining.com, where this is being hosted. So you can leave your comments and questions and sort of keep things going after we end this broadcast. And I'll certainly be glad to follow up with you there. And as I said before, you could always follow up with me on Twitter as well. That's Ramsay Media LLC at Twitter. I'm on Google Plus and I'm on Facebook. So any of those things. But right, for now, the best thing would be to keep things going in the comments area right below this video, at the bottom of the page that this video is hosted on. So thanks for joining me tonight, and I hope to see you again tomorrow for our second video where we're going to talk about the science of stage hypnotism. And hopefully my voice will be a little bit better. Sorry about that. I'm Paul Ramsay. Thanks so much for joining me. Be well.